Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second session of Currencycloud's LinkedIn Live event, led by a report conducted with FXC Intelligence. I'm joined here by Alek Koenig, CEO and founder of Settle. Alek, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Alek, embedded finance is the seamless integration of financial services into a traditionally non-financial service, enabling a customer-facing digital platform to embed and offer financial services. The report that we conducted with FXC Intelligence shows a shift of brands, increasing revenue streams, and more importantly, higher customer engagement. Can you give us a little background on yourself and the inception of Settle?
Yeah, so we started Settle in November of 19. Prior to that, I was the head of credit at a firm. So I was managing all the underwriting and pricing decisions there, doing portfolio management, things like that. And then I left at the 4-year mark to start Settle. So we build a cash flow management platform for e-commerce brands. And what that really entails is a combination of accounts payable software, but then also working capital. So we're kind of combining the two products in an elegant way just to help these brands scale quicker.
Awesome. Can you tell us about any of the growth opportunities you've seen through Settle with adding embedded finance into your customers' experience?
Yeah, so we're a little bit different, I think, than most because that's how we launched. So we didn't have like a software product and then we added financing. We just kind of came out of the gates with both. But I think that was kind of necessary to really differentiate ourselves. So what we do is from the accounts payable side, we're ingesting invoices, breaking all that information down, and now we're processing payments and then syncing all that information into their accounting software because any money that's moved for a business needs to be accounted for. But the unique thing that we do is we provide working capital as well within that product. So all these e-commerce companies have the exact same issue where they have this big cash flow gap from buying inventory to turning that into revenue. So we could effectively streamline those two events and help them float that. So they could pay us back with the revenue from those inventory purchases instead of just paying with their own cash and then waiting to get paid so they can reinvest that into their business. So that's, I think, what's been resonating most with our companies, and that's why they're joining us. Even we don't even have any sales or marketing, so it's all word of mouth. So because we can actually change their business through this working capital, that's what really differentiates us.
Yeah, it's interesting that you started with both the accounts payable and the working capital offers for your clients. Do you see one or the other maybe driving more of that growth to Settle?
Yeah, I definitely think, especially since we're like in our organic customer acquisition perspective, the working capital is the real big differentiator. So that's why customers come in, but then they stay for the software because we just get embedded in the workflows. And even when I was starting this, a lot of investors thought I was crazy. Like, it sounds like you're creating two companies. Why would you do this? Just like do the software. And I was like, well, like this is the real differentiator. So like if we don't have that, then it's going to really be tough sledding, just selling like software that just might be a little bit normal, a little bit more expected. So we had to be different, right? So that's why we kind of took that approach that it's going to be more work, but at the end of the day, it's going to pay off.
And so speaking of the software, one of the statistics that the report calls out is that 67% of industry experts agreed that the lack of supporting technologies and services is the biggest barrier to the successful adoption of embedded finance. Were there any key drivers for Settle choosing to adopt the embedded finance model?
For us, it was especially since we're starting off, and like you might not want to build so much product before you have customers because then you might have just wasted a lot of time. So it's very key for us to like adopt technologies to help us get there quicker. So that's why we started off with Modern Treasury. We started off with Currencycloud from day one because we knew international payments was just so crucial to our customers, and without it, it's not really a great product. So we're very thankful that there's companies like you and others that kind of make that much easier for startups. Because if we had to do it all ourselves, it might have taken us a year or more, or maybe even longer. But like if we can launch with Currencycloud, within 60 days, that really makes it much easier for us.
Yeah, the old saying of build versus buy, right?
Right. And I think buy is just like a no-brainer in this case.
Especially in this startup world.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, did you see this as a priority for Settle from the beginning, or maybe once you started to build things out and to see where the company was going to grow into?
No, it's definitely a priority. And like once we knew that, we're really going to focus on e-commerce exclusively, just by talking with some of the customers, you quickly understand that a lot of their inventory purchases, which are their largest expenses, really come from overseas. So if we didn't have that in an elegant way, then it just probably wouldn't be good enough. And I think we have about 500 customers today. So if we didn't have it, maybe we'd have 50 by now. So this was really key in unlocking that functionality for us.
And then not only with the suppliers coming from overseas, but have you seen since the start of the pandemic a more growth in also contractors and or employees that are working for these e-commerce companies overseas as well?
No, absolutely right. Especially, I think it might have been a little bit taboo before COVID, but especially since all work has become remote first, then it's kind of normalized. So there's a lot of companies paying, contractors overseas, and this is, one thing we could offer them that helps them make that much easier and painless for them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So moving over to the customer experience, there's another stat: 60% of the industry experts ranked improving the customer experience and reducing time spent engaging with financial products and services amongst the top three benefits of embedded finance. From your experience with Settle, to start, do you agree with this?
Absolutely, and it's kind of funny from our perspective because, in one way, you kind of want your user to spend more time within your software, but for us, like we're paying vendors. So one thing that we look at is like, could we actually have our customers spend less time in our app, and kind of thought as a success. If we kind of look at it like DAUs, MAU numbers, like, hey, maybe we actually want that to be lower. Maybe we want them spending it like using it, but like spending it as little time as possible in there. So if we could, remove clicks, remove any typing, remove any confirmations, and just make it more seamless, then like I think that's going to be a win in the day. So these brands could actually like get back to running their business instead of spending time on paying vendors.
Yeah, absolutely. How about any other impacts that you've seen on the customer experience?
Yeah, for us, especially when we kind of rolled out FX in a seamless way, customers just are happier. We get less inbound, asking questions like, "Hey, how does this work?" And everything is just so clear. And that's FX transaction is complicated by nature, but since we're able to really simplify it, then we just hear customers are happy about it, and we're very like transparent with the cost of it, the speed of it. So just being able to show that on a screen is very beneficial.
So another interesting point on the customer experience is also within the vendor relationship. Have you seen any impacts on your client base that their vendors are happier now that they're using some sort of an embedded finance platform to make those supplier payments to them?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely, because especially since we have the working capital angle as well into it, vendors are effectively getting paid sooner than they would have. So normally, customer might wait a few days, like, maybe I'll pay them once I get my first like collections email. But now we're able to like send payments really quickly. And in some cases where we're financing it, like they're just paying them exactly when it's due or maybe before. So vendors are definitely happier as well. And that's something, we really want to be able to show to these vendors like, hey, this is the benefit for your customer to use Settle.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like our viewers to know about the impact of embedded finance on the industry as a whole?
Yeah, I just kind of expect, it's going to be pretty widespread. I think every business effectively, in one way or another, will embed finance into their platform. So when you're kind of thinking about the world, just expect every company to do so. And then, especially if you're a new startup founder, like if you assume that's the case, then like what does the world look like when that happens?
Yeah, it's interesting that the everyday consumer and small medium business are probably using some sort of embedded finance at this point, and not even really knowing it. So bringing it to the widespread market and the knowledge of it is probably something that's really going to take off.
Yeah, and especially, since we're doing that, we're effectively able to offer like the core software cheaper than others because we have this other revenue stream. So I think it's a net benefit for the industry as well and the consumer, where you should just see costs continue to go down, so in a very like deflationary way, because you're able to replace one revenue stream with another, and even like I think when like Bill.com buys Divvy, which is like buying this corporate card functionality, that's potentially as a way to like reduce the cost of their core software, as they see these other competitors come in, like Brex and Ramp and others. So it's a very like interesting tool to use in a competitive nature as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Alex, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Really appreciate you joining us. And for our viewers, be sure to check out part one of the series with Currencycloud's Brady Burkett and Alpaca's CEO and co-founder Yoshi Yokokawa. Thanks again, Alec, and really looking forward to watching the continued success of Settle.